far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment, it's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your destiny. 100 women growing strong. 100 women where you belong. You stood tall and now you see, you have reached your destiny. Woman, woman.
As people of African descent, we offer this land recognition in solidarity with the indigenous peoples of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intentions toward decolonization. As people of African descent, we acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that sustains us, express deep gratitude to its indigenous peoples, and pledge to honor our dignity and divinity that ultimately connects us all. By Kay Johnson. Welcome to 100 ABC Fireside Chats. 100 Accomplished Black Canadian Women is a bold project initiated by co-authors and co-founders, the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine, Dr. Denise O'Neill Green, and Donna Jones Simmons. Our mission is to celebrate and archive the professional accomplishments of trailblazing Black women from all across Canada. The goal is to create an ever-expanding database available for current and future generations via print media, public and private libraries, as well as our website, which is www.100abcwomen.ca. In addition to our fireside chats on topics that matter to our communities, such as education, healthcare, entertainment, creative arts, trade union, and so much more, we offer biennial book launching galas and biannual symposiums. The co-authors and co-founders would like to take this opportunity to thank each of you for attending today's fireside chat. We know that you will find these sessions educational and inspirational. So sit back, relax, and hear from our brilliant and talented honorees.
Hello, I'm Jean Augustine. It's Black History Month in Canada. It was actually 28 years ago, December 1995, that I proposed a motion that we celebrate and designate Black History Month in Canada. A motion that was unanimously accepted by the Parliament of Canada. This year, the Black History Month theme is ours to tell, or stories to tell. In other words, it's up to you and it's up to all of us to keep the complete story of Canada. Because you see, Black history is all of our history. Black history is not just for Black people. It is Canada's history. And so our stories in Canada must be inclusive of all of us who are here, all of us who've joined our Indigenous peoples to create this great country we call Canada. So let's do this in this month of February, Black History Month. Let's all tell our story and let's all share each other's story. Happy Black History Month in Canada.
Good day, everyone. I'm Donna Jones-Simmons, co-author, co-founder, and the architect of the 100 ABC Women project, as well as the executive producer of our Fireside Chats. Special thanks to our incredible technical support team, our moderator and panelists, who are the drivers behind our weekly inspirational conversations. Let me now turn you over to our moderator, who will introduce herself to you, as well as today's topic. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule and busy day. And I know for a lot of you, or for some of you, Super Bowl is what's on your mind, but we are going to take you on a very intellectual conversation that's going to navigate the scopes with regards to our culture, our history, and where we as a society needs to support our entrepreneurs, our artists, and our other endeavors that better and enrich our lives as a whole. So without further ado, I'm Yvette Blackburn, as I stated, and I have four beautiful and talented women here with me today. Today I have Rachel DaCosta, I have Coco Cognac Brown, we have Crystal Mako, and of course, Elise Hardin Davis. And without further ado, I'm going to have Rachel introduce herself and give you a little bit of an insight as to who she is and what she does.
Bonjour tout le monde. Hi, my name is Rachel DeCoste out of Ottawa. I am a software engineer by training. I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert and consultant. And I'm also a Black history buff. So I'm very happy to be among this distinguished panel today, and I can't wait to talk to you more.
Fantastic. So bonjour also. Elise Hardin Davis, how are you? Please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Good afternoon, Yvette and other panelists. I am an African Canadian heritage consultant, which is an outgrowth of my being an internationally recognized expert, particularly on African Canadian history. I've spent a lifetime reading books, digging through documents, to find little bits of my Africanness here in Canada.
Very good, Elise, thank you. And Coco Cognac Brown, please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Sure. My name is Coco Cognac Brown. I'm a professional singer, songwriter, keyboard player, house music recording artist. Professionally, I have a background also in IT as a network engineer and systems administrator for Jira, mainly Jira products. I'm currently working as the musical director for the Verity Center Church in Toronto. And I'm also the owner, operator of a luxury cleaning business.
Very good, very good. And last but of course not least, Crystal Mako, please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
Hi everyone, bonjour, Christelle here, joining today. I'm a speaker, senior communication and marketing strategist. I own Bell Creative, which is an online one shop for all small business, and I'm also the regional marketing manager at Radio Canada. And I'm really happy to be joining today and discuss all about Black History Month.
Thank you so much, ladies. I'm really looking forward to it because we have a wide array from different geographical perspectives of our countries represented today, right? So we have the Quebec area, we have our West Coast is also here, along with, of course, Ontario. So the very first question, just so we get this nice and easy and lighten up the mood, what does Black history mean to you? And why should we continue to study it? But I don't want you to go too in depth on that piece because I want to build upon that. So I will go in the reverse order then. So Crystal, you go first.
Thanks, Yvette. For me, I think it's really important to celebrate Black History Month. I was born in Cameroon, and I must say it's not something we celebrate there because we are aware of our roots and where we come from. But being a mother of 3 kids now, I think it's really important that they know, about their background, where to come from. But also, as the rest of the society, I think it's important that other people, non-African descendant people, are aware of, the struggle, the joy, and everything that's attached with the Black culture.
The 4th pioneering people of this nation.
Very good. True. Coco?
Yeah, Black History Month, it's extremely important. To me, I look at it as really Black History Year, but I'll settle for a month. And as long as in that month, we're truly getting the information that we deserve to have, which is the truth of who we are and our accomplishments globally, on the continent and diasporically, especially at this time in history where it's unprecedented with the amount of censorship going on. Online censorship, censorship in terms of literature, et cetera. So more now than ever, I think it's important that people really appreciate Black history for all that it represents.
Very good. Rachel?
I would say for me, Black History Month, it's changed over the years. At first, it was just about reinserting our existence into the history of the world. But as I've grown older and I've learned more about the origins of Black History Month, Carter G. Woodson, when he created this in the 1920s, it was a week, first of all, but it was all about, it was very FUBU, for us, by us. And it was about taking stock of where Black people are in the journey towards emancipation and freedom, and figuring out what progress we've done in the past year and where we should direct our efforts for financial freedom, spiritual freedom, economic freedom, you name it. And it was very much introspection, and that's sort of what it's become to me now, about looking within our community and seeing how we've maybe the errors that we've made, strategic errors, and how we can move forward together towards real freedom.
So let me springboard off of that then into the next part of what I'd like to discuss. So in light of the woke society that we have post the George Floyd era, where we have numerous organizations and societies speaking about anti-racism and oppression, anti-Black racism, the various isms that are intersected with regards to us and the societies to which we live. Do you think we have regressed with regards to where our positioning should be, since you said originally this was FUBU, for us, by us, right? Looking at where we should be, have we made any progress, or in this woke society, we're seeing it's more problematic and regressive? So Coco, I'll start with you, with your opinions.
I would say so. Yes, I think we have regressed. I think with all that we have at our disposal in terms of the internet and the information age, with the amount of people who are truly aware, seeing, yes, what happened to George Floyd, what's happened to Breonna Taylor, what's happened to, all of these things are happening in front of us in real time. And for the amount of information that's available, I don't see the type of mobilization around activism, around really pushing back, around pushing to have policies changed. Even the George Floyd Police Reform Act has never been has never been established. It's not written into law. There's no policy that's in place. I know there's no hate crime bill against Black people in America, and yet everybody else there, for example, has, when I say everybody else, all the other protected groups, the LGBTQ, the Asian Americans, they all have hate crime bills, but the most hated, obviously, undeniably, the most hated group still has no protection. And I think in terms of us here in Canada, where we're often looked upon as the 51st state, it's something that we need to take seriously, because the saying is, what drop off ahead, drop on shoulder, right? So I really don't want to see all of what's happening down there, happening up here, although I see it happening. It's just slowly, the wheel is starting to turn the other way. And I really disagree with that. I think beyond just a name, Black Lives Matter, I think that the whole push, the movement, the activism therein has to step up and mean something concrete instead of just, again, a symbolic gesture, the title, a protest here and there. No, I think we really need to get down into it and start making sure that laws are put in place where we're not steamrolled over.
Crystal?
I feel like we in some areas we've made some progress. In others, it's more of a step back. I think, and I think the other something that social media has played a huge role on is Black trauma, because we are seeing so many of these images. I mean, it's good and bad, because people that are non-Black folks, maybe it's a way for them to be aware of what's happening to Black people that they do not experience. But at the same time, as a Black person, it gets to a point where you kind of get tired of always having to explain, to do the education part. And so that's why I'm saying it's kind of yes, we are making progress, and no, we are taking a step back. I think with George Floyd, we saw a lot of people saying, yes, I want to be an ally, I want to help, but real change comes from one person at a time. And we kind of saw some businesses starting to take a step and say, okay, this is what we're going to do moving forward. Our board is going to hire representation to make sure that we have diversity and so forth. But, time goes by, things happen, and then people move on with their lives, and kind of go back to what it was before. So for me, it's hard to say yes and no. I think there's still some progress to be made.
Okay, Elise?
I agree totally with Coco. I also feel that media has made it an entertainment, and most of society sits back, watches, and does nothing. I'm the oldest here, and I remember as a child, we had elders who formed groups and were dedicated to improving our lot in life. And by that, I mean not just who we are and what we are, but what we do. For every facet of life, there is a Black component. We don't seem to be focusing on that anymore. People are looking for title, people are looking for prominence, but they're not reaching back, bringing the rest of us along with them, and helping us to be in a better place in this world. Here in Canada, the Prime Minister was Wednesday night at an anti-Black racism secretariat, talked about the fact that there's a $200+ million fund to help African Canadians. Well, it's also being, quote, quote, run by African Canadians. Many of us don't even know who these people are anymore. Many of us have been in the trenches for decades and are being brushed aside and forgotten.
So on that
In
point,
the
hold that.
school.
I'm going to come back to that for sure. So hold for a minute here. Rachel, let me hear your perspective.
Well, I'd say where there has been progress, I'll start with the positive, is representation. I feel that there are more Black faces in spaces that traditionally have excluded us. Where there needs to be more progress is what happens when that Black one and only gets to that space. Do they have the space to speak without fear of retribution? Are they heard? And is their voice really being used to better the organization? And I think that's where maybe there's a lot of progress to be made. Is, you know, you've made that realization that there needs to be more people at the table from different walks of life and different races, and you've hired usually, you know, hopefully a dark-skinned Black person who has that lived experience. And then what? So yes, in that realm, we haven't done the progress that I think we should do. And there's more to that. Of course, it's complicated once you get to that space. You need to keep your job. Sometimes they're not ready to hear what you have to say. And sometimes we have to play the long game. So I don't want to throw any stones because I live in the glass house myself, and it's difficult to be in that space. But definitely there needs to be room for us to speak our minds when we get to that table.
So taking in what you're saying, at least the same, Coco, and to Crystal's point too, about there is some aspects of balance of what's happening. But let's get into, because we're all really speaking in the sense though about Black leadership, right? So and to the point about when you get there, and I will throw, I'll be the person throwing the rocks at the the glass tower there, right? So the question is, when you get there, the point of the activism that happened previous to get you to be at those seats is to affect change. So if you're not in that seat affecting change, you're living, and to use your words, the long game. The long game, though, becomes detrimental because while everyone's looking to be happy to see the Black face or faces, where they literally have the power now to impact change, it's not happening, right? So to go back, I'll do a reverse, but Crystal, I'll come to you first, though. But in the sense of, if we have Black leadership, but Black leadership is not impacting or affecting change, should we still be happy to say, oh, we have Black people in the positions, right? Or were we open, right? Because you want to see change, not just someone that is reflective. It's great, and I applaud it, but what do we need? And then the second part, to go Cognac, Coco, when we come to you again, is about when you're speaking about the critical race theory that's coming in now, the nullification, all of this new aspects of trying to deny who we are, what we are, and not having it spoken about. We know the states are more vocal, but here in our systems of education, you do have administration teachers, you know, and we'll come to the point, if we just use Toronto District School Board in the sense of now moving Chinese heritage into Black History Month, where people are now doing a jockeying game with regards to which one they want to celebrate. I kind of muddled the waters a bit. So first we'll stick with the aspect of Black leadership and their impact or lack thereof, or what we need to be able to move forward. So Crystal, I'll go to you, then Elise, and then Rachel, and then I'll have Coco have the last word. Go ahead.
So do you want me to speak just on the Black leadership part? Or
Oh, you can roll it all into one,
okay,
if you wish.
Okay, well, to speak into the Black leadership role, I think, yes, we, and Rachel mentioned it, like, it's great to have new faces at the table. I think we need even more faces. I don't think it's enough. I think it's just a start. I think we need more. More needs to be done. I think there needs to be some kind of way to for organizations to be held more accountable for that. I think that's just the first part, because after that, that's when they can actually start making changes. And I'm not seeing any changes yet, you know. And I mean, for a situation that has happened for centuries, of course, it's not going to change just by a click of fingers. It's going to take time. So that's why I think it's a good start, but we still need to see more happening in that front. In terms of, you know, what's happening, for the second part of your question there, even with the Toronto School Board division, I think that it's really interesting, but it's a movement that's happening. I know there's a lot going on in the US on that front. We haven't seen anything like that here in Western Canada, but it's really interesting because usually education people talk a lot among themselves, and it just takes one to start, and then the next, will start to follow. It's really unfortunate because I know there's Asian Heritage Month, which is usually celebrated in May. So I don't think it's good to put one against the other. I think we can celebrate both. I think it's great to celebrate Asian heritage as well as Black History Month. We don't have the same history. We don't have the same struggle. It's not the same culture. So I don't see why they will go that direction. So I think we should definitely speak on it so that more people can actually react to that. To avoid a situation where, educators feel like they need to pick one or the other and they cannot do both.
Very good. Elise?
I am recognized as a Black leader. I can remember going to events and being asked to serve drinks because I was Black. That's what my role was, they supposed, to receiving the Order of Ontario. And in that 60 years of working, we still do not respect our leaders. Our leadership is regional, not Canada-wide. 100 ABC Women is one of the few venues where we look at our country as a whole. And, these days we're calling it Black History, Black Future Month. And I respect that. However, we have not dealt with the history appropriately, nor have we stopped segmenting the history. I live in Southwestern Ontario. People want to talk about Blacks came to Canada through Nova Scotia. No, they came through Southwestern Ontario too. I believe we need a summit of Black leaders. I believe that schools teaching Asian history when it's Black History Month is no better than schools here in the Windsor area teaching Indigenous history during Black History Month. It was designated for a purpose, and that purpose is now being smeared. When I was in high school, parents in my community, and there were over 50 of them, walked to the school collectively and demanded that they started teaching about Black history, which created and started the Underground Railroad educational process. I don't see people coalescing like that anymore. Maybe our world is so hard to make a living or hard to find a place to live that we don't have the opportunity to look at the enrichment of our children by teaching them about their history. People don't even sit down with their children. They don't have the time. We have to help our community, our society within society, to learn that what their history is what their future is.
Very good. Coco? Good point.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Yeah, okay, in terms of leadership, I would say that, it's good to see more Black people in prominent positions, I'll give that. But it's almost like there seems to be a trade-off. With the Black leaders who are there, they're really not standing in the shoes, I think, of true Black advocacy. Yes, I think it's, again, a symbolic move. We see someone in that position, but it's almost like they have to, like there's a code of silence. There's only so much they can say. They're walking a very fine line. And I think there's a lot of pressure when that happens. I can speak for myself. When I was hired in the largest architecture and engineering firm in North America, it's located in Forest Hills. I was the first Black woman hired in the IT department of about 80 different IT professionals. And it was one of the worst experiences of my life, easily. I did let them know that I cited, racism in the company as well as sexism. And they were very nervous about it. They had an internal investigation, and the lawyers in the company said, yes, well, her rights are being infringed upon. So they hired an external attorney, which was completely unprecedented. And it was a massive investigation that lasted at least 3 months. In the end, they found that, yes, my rights were violated. They decided to effect change by introducing sensitivity training. Things like that they think are supposed to do something. I thought, this is not, this is, and I live in Toronto, where diversity is everything. It's to make this whole machine run, or at least that's what it looks like. But when it comes down to it, not enough is really being done. And I think there's a bit too much pressure on the few leaders that we do have. And if they're not strong in terms of their Black pride, their Black confidence, their knowledge, their desire to forward our people, then it's almost all for naught. And so we're on this kind of rocking horse. In terms of the Chinese Education Month being included in Black History Month, which of course is the shortest month of the year, I don't think there's a coincidence with that. I think that's intentional. And I agree, it works towards diminishing the value that we have and, the education that we have. It's now being spliced with, the age of, why can't they pick another month? As I think Christelle said, it's May in BC, but here, everything's in February now. It's a watering down. It's the nullifying. I do think that many people are just becoming desensitized to, the struggles that we have, that we keep talking about, that we keep marching about, that we keep protesting about, that we keep citing. Many people are just becoming, again, and that's the travesty. So I think we have to push back against that. It took a while for us to be able to get our own month, and now it needs to be shared with another ethnic group. I agree that, yes, their education and information about them, it's important, but I think there's another month that can be designated.
Rachel?
Just to clarify, the federal government of Canada has designated Black History Month for February, and Asian Heritage Month is May. It's been around for at least 20 years. And I'm assuming a lot of, there's cascading from the federal level all the way down to provincial and municipal. And one of the great things about both Asian Heritage Month and Black History Month is that it's for all Asians and all Black people, so it doesn't specify one particular country. And that's one of the shortcomings with the Chinese New Year, is that I don't think it includes all Asian people, although there's more than just Chinese people who celebrate it. It is the shortest month of the year. I feel like it's restricting to have to fight for the smallest month amongst other racialized minorities. And we need to learn from our Black history to know that there's a history of this, of pitting us against each other to reign. And for me, the solution is not fighting our Asian comrades or our Indigenous comrades. Just resist that, because if you're fighting each other, you should be fighting above. That's first. Second is something I've personally done in my life, is expanded Black History Month around the whole year. So I'm not restricted by 28 days. I celebrate it year round. I took a class, it's a publicly available class here in Ottawa. There's a nonprofit called Jaku Combit that offers a Black history class online and in person, and they go through African history from the Kush civilization, etc. And that's around the whole year. So I would very much resist fighting our other minority people and think about fighting upstairs and also going from within. And you can expand that, especially for your children. You're not restricted to 28 days. Having said that, as a parent who has fought a school board and won, there is strength in numbers. I like the idea that Elise advanced, where all parents demand something. And if there's anything they're afraid of, is a coalition of passionate Black people advocating together. I've done that myself a year ago when I advocated for one of these forums to be inclusive for Black children that wanted a social worker that reflects their history, that would be available for them. It was an uphill battle, I'm not gonna lie, but having allies both within and outside my community definitely helped. And that's something we should work on more generally. Now, when you talked about the second part about leaders, one of my personal pet peeves is that in Canada, it feels like our leaders are chosen for us by people who don't look like us, that they're plucked in these positions of perceived power, I do say perceived power, and sort of left like a candle in the wind to navigate. So we need to be more strategic in our voting, in our advocacy, so that we get to pick our leaders. Because when our leaders are chosen by people that don't look like us, they are beholden to whomever chose them, whomever put them in that position. They're beholden to that first. So that's one thing to think about when you're bestowed an organization that's going to dole out money, or a new MP, or a new MPP, or a new city councilor. Who put them there? Who funds them? Who on which side is their bread buttered? And question that and judge them based on actions, not just what is projected.
Right, because I would put you, and anyone else can jump in, because the question then becomes, it's not about worrying about your bread is buttered. If you have a contract that's 2 years or 3 years, for whatever you have been given your title and your mandate is, your goal then should be to affect change, and either think within yourself that, guess what, I might have to exit this role out of that 2-year, 3-year contract, but in that time period, I'm going to ensure that I affect change. I think, again, it becomes, we again are bridled. We don't realize we are shackled, right? So if you don't have advocacy within yourself as a Black leader to be able to speak, and granted, I am not disqualifying the stress, the derogatory statements, the defamation, the anti-Black racism that's going to be thrown at you, the tropes about being aggressive and blah, blah, right? All of that we know come with it. But you have to be able to be principled and stand in the framework of saying you want to affect change. So anybody else have a couple more last pieces on that? Because then I'm going to swing us into the next piece about how we assist and how we best aid our entrepreneurs and artists in the community. So anyone have any final statements? I do. Your mouth going. Go ahead.
Yes, I do. That I have experienced all the things you're talking about. I left the museum because it could not financially support me. Saying that, I took a job elsewhere as an executive administrator of Hotel Dieu Grace Hospital at the time, but I never left the museum, and I've never abandoned my Blackness. And I stand independently to forward Black history. And I don't care who disagrees or agrees with what I say. What I say is factual because I have researched it and I have lived it. And the principle, as you're saying, does come from within. And you can't be sidetracked by glory. The awards I've gotten only, in my opinion, give me something to stand on. something to have a little bit more clout behind my quest to make African Canadian history Canadian history. That's what I do.
Coco, were you going to say something?
Just that, I think that, as the saying goes, all our skin folk ain't our kinfolk. And, I see that more and more popping up now more than ever. I think there's a desperation, it feels like. People are really desperate. And when I say people, the so-called white power structure, the system, seems to be very desperate to try and keep things a certain way. And no, there's a lot of pushback, but they will choose and pick, as was cited before, who to put in certain places, the ones that they can manipulate, the ones who will talk their agenda and push that kind of thing. So it's very interesting. I know for me, I've never really been a big fan of voting. I've done it, I just haven't seen where it's done much for me, so or my people at all. So I think once I start to see more people that look like me, but also have the character to go with it, then, maybe I'll push more of that. But I'm very aware of people, yes, being put into strategic positions that are not necessarily for our benefit.
Mhm. Crystal or Rachel, anything last statements on this point? Or are you good?
Yeah,
One
I
last-
can. One last thought, Rachel. And then I just want to add, because I, having known people that have been into that position, Black people into senior position role, one thing that sometimes could come up also is just the fact that if you've done this for most of your life, being the only Black person in the room, having to feeling like you have to educate again and again and again, there's also Black fatigue that comes with doing that all the time. So it's not to excuse some of those people in those senior positions. If you're hired, your Black person hires maybe as the DEI representative for the company, that's your job. But like Coco was speaking to what she was doing before, if your job is, I don't know, IT, and whenever there's a situation, you always feel like you have to educate people, then there comes a point where you kind of becoming a little bit tired of always having to address issues, to talk about those microaggressions and everything that's happening. So I think we should all also acknowledge that, because it's really recurrent and happens to a lot of folks as well.
That's a good point, Christelle. To that, I would add, one of the ways in the past that I've lived Black history year round is when I used to write op-eds in the Huffington Post in both official languages for almost 5 years. It was almost once a week. And I talked about policy, usually national policy, immigration, business, foreign policy also. And most of my articles are not at the outset about race or diversity, but I made sure to include a snippet of Black history or lesser known history in every article, so that people reading it, they think they're reading about hockey and PK Subban. But I ended up adding some kind of historical factoid so that people, my readers, would end up being educated. But I was conscious enough to know that you can't lead with, this will be a Black history story, because that doesn't get you clicks, unfortunately. But leading with, this is about hockey, this is about sports, this is about immigration, and then inserting the history was a successful way that I did to try to include Black history on everyday conversations, not just the 28 days.
And that within it is an intentional purpose. So something was done. There was action, right? So those are to the pieces. And Chris, you make up a valid point. Black fatigue is real, but again, it still comes back to, you got to have the mental fortitude, in a sense, though, push for change, right? So, and with that then, ladies, so we talk about Blackness and the new emergence of new businesses and either the tech space, within the artist realm, and what we're doing. using Black History Month is one of the key things. And I will cite Trey Anthony's article that was just out the other days with regards to where she was contacted by a big Fortune 500 company that wanted her to, give up her skill sets for free. Give me some of your experiences for now in the sense of what you do and how you feel that we are being overused, misused, taken for granted within the spaces that we work, both in the larger society context and our community. Because how do you eat when you are more of an entrepreneur? And then even if you are working for a company or an institution or organization, but you have your business that you do on the side, you still want to make sure it's very profitable. So what do we need to do? First, your experiences in the space and what you do and how you feel it is not being able to be monetized appropriately because we are taking advantage and not really respecting the craft or the skill sets or knowledge that people bring. So then, Coco, I'll start with you.
Okay, so in terms of experience, interesting. I mean, currently I'm in a situation like that right now. And unfortunately, it's with my, our people. I've been asked to step into a position of leadership, one that's often, I don't know, let's say a minimum $65,000 a year to definitely a six-figure salary type of position. But they do want me to do it for free or next to nothing. And I've just been, it's interesting you should bring this up. I mean, it's when these things happen, yeah, it's hard to deal with. My heart is for my people. I would love to be able to work in that capacity full time, all the time, with the level of monetary respect as well as other forms of respect. And at the same time, I'm being offered, a solid paying position, the same position with a white company. So I'm in the position now where I choose, do I help to just churn the wheel with my people and get us to a place, and maybe 3 to 6 months down the road, they'll be in a position to perhaps back pay me and honor me going forward that way? Or do I jump ship and again work with an established white company that has all the perks and benefits to offer me right now? It's one of respecting myself, respecting my integrity, but myself is also my Black self. Myself is also, so it's unfortunately, I think we're still in this place where our people are not either not financially able from a position of ownership and being able to hire, with the best practices in place and offer what's deserved for people's credentials, or do we continue to work in white and industries to get the kinds of rewards and perks that we deserve? I get it. We're all experiencing what it's like to live through a hugely inflated time. Everything is up. And at the same time, we're also getting, for the ones who are conscious and want to work with our people, we're also dealing with a lot of pushback. So it's an interesting place to be in. But in terms of you mentioned in terms of the working situation, I'm sorry, your two questions, it was a two-part that you put out. Could you just refresh me with?
So the first part was about your experiences, but then how are we seeing in the larger context, so how institutional organizations are with not the pay, right? Like taking for granted the usage type of thing of your skill sets, your craft and knowledge. So you kind of tied it in.
Yeah, I guess I did. I blended the whole thing. They're in a position, establishments are in a position to draw talent because they have it. If they want to draw the talent and not offer the pay, as in Trey Anthony's case, that's, for me, that's a complete write-off. I find that sometimes, they dangle more money because they want you to come in, whether it's so they can click the checkbox, they've fulfilled that quota, or they really want your talents, what you bring. And the are people, struggling still to get to that place where they can afford to bring in the talent that they want. It's I don't know. I do think that we need to push more. We need more people in positions of prominence. I'm all for education, furthering that, and getting to executive positions. And once we get there, yeah, I'm into reaching back, to our people to pull us up and put us in those positions. So I know that's what I do with my company. I look to hire, sure, the best and the brightest, but I'm always partial to my people.
Rachel, sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Coco. It reminded me of my personal experience, and this is especially for all the people watching who are part of marginalized, traditionally underrepresented groups. I had not gotten the promotion in about 15 years before I moved to Washington, D.C. I was in Ottawa, always acting director and acting, senior leader for, 3 months, 4 months, because they needed somebody that they had confidences, but somehow I was never promoted from within. Went to United States. I went to Chocolate City, which is Washington, D.C. is very, very, very Black. And almost overnight, I got executive positions there without trying, without having a connections. And what the message that was drilled into me by my African American brothers and sisters is, you are skilled, you are educated, you are worth something. Never, ever accept any work that is not paid, because you are teaching them your value by accepting that. And you are worth way more than nothing. I took that message to heart. And when I came back home to Ottawa, I stopped even entertaining propositions that did not come with the envelope that I think I deserve as an educated, capable Black woman leader. And I encourage everybody listening to take that same doctrine, because if you allow them to get you to work for free, they will. And you'll get a little certificate, which is nothing. So I think it's up to us to take that stand and demand to be paid what we're worth. Now, that can be varying skills. I just want to make sure that people understand there's a fee for corporates and there's a fee for nonprofits, and you have to have a sliding scale. But zero is we are worth more than zero. I am worth more than zero, and I will never accept anything less ever again. And I encourage all of us to do that. When it comes to, I think you had another point about the leadership piece. And I think if you're on the inside of that, the organization that's trying to get a speaker for Black History Month or Asian history or anything, if you're the one leader of color in the room, it's up to you to speak up and say, and come with facts and say, look, we had X amount of other speakers in the past years that we've paid on average this. I got that from HR, from the finance people, and I'm just wondering why we're making an exception for such and such a person, and is that something we should review? And by simply asking the question, often you'll get an answer, or you'll get people that will readjust what they're offering based on the thought that you force them to have. So as leaders, as the one and only, we can't always, change the whole system. We have to make allies. It takes time, but asking tough questions can often be the spark that forces that change within the organization.
Agreed.
Okay, good points. Crystal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a great point that Rachel brought up. I just wanted to maybe answer the first part of your questions. As an entrepreneur, it's something that I had to dealt with a lot. Small business, especially, I think people take for granted whenever they come to you because they need products for different reasons. And they don't realize what goes into, your packaging and all the process of making your product. So, we had requests for socials and people expect you to give your products for free. And I think even sometimes it even comes close to us because it's those family and friends who, they want to support you, but to support you, you have to give the product free. And I just think that that's one way of actually, if you really want to support Black businesses or any kind of business for that matter, like you should really be able to invest, rather than asking for free stuff. And I also know that around Black History Month, people sometimes, I don't know, people, we're all busy, but I think we should stop the excuse of waiting the last minute to get someone to speak, whether it's a school or sing somewhere. We know it's every February every year. So, get ready, get organized, and make sure, like Rachel was saying, that, you have a budget that goes for that person. Don't expect people to come and do that kind of work for free, because and something else that I want to share as well, because I do a lot of stuff online on social media, and I speak with a lot of Black content creators. I know it's a real thing where they, a company will actually hire different content creators or influencers. And as a Black content creator, they sometimes they don't get paid at all, or they only get portion of what the other are paid to do. And the ask is the same. The thing is, you don't really ask the other people because you assume that if they're giving you that, that's what everyone else is getting. But it's always good to ask those questions, because by asking, then that's how you find out, why is this person getting that when we're supposed to do the same campaign or do the same thing. And, I think that's something that needs to be addressed and needs to change as well.
Great.
And Elise, good points, Elise.
I've got so many things going through my head at this moment. As a leader, one is expected to be well-heeled. And what I'm saying is, a lot of people think that I have money because I've been doing what I've been doing for so long. This is not a business where you get a lot of money. And you have to make decisions as to whether to gift people, which is saying you give your expertise for free in order to open a door for the rest of us to come through. I've done a lot of that in my life. Or do I demand the same fee I know my white brothers and sisters are getting because my expertise is equal and sometimes more? I've done both. You have to balance how you go along in order to keep things moving. Title doesn't mean much of anything. It's something to put in front or behind your name, but you're the engine and you are the individual who has to love self enough to make a decision as to whether you're going to be paid or you're going to be respected or you're going to be self-promoting. I was in a position where a new CEO came in and was looking through all of the different positions in the corporation and decided that with mine, without my consent, they would change my job description, take me down to part-time, and cut my salary in half with no benefits. And perhaps they thought because I was Black, I would buy into that. I sued the company because my value is as much and more than anyone else, because I was also the token there. And then when I got what I wanted after I won the suit, I publicly left. Because when you are in these situations and no one knows, and they treat you the way they choose to treat you, and then you're gone, and that story isn't known. You have to tell your story. You have to tell your story. I've been teaching Black Studies at St. Clair College in Windsor since 1993. It was the first post-secondary Black education course. Not very many people know that. I have traveled globally, been to Africa, as we were talking about before we started the process. And when I was there, I was delighted to find that a family name on the male side that went from generation to generation, we didn't know what it was. The name was Gaian. That is what they call kings in Ghana, where I was. So that was a link to my past that also helped our family before DNA to know that's where we came from. A lot of this is simply about knowing who you are, believing in who you are, and passing that knowledge in that capacity.
So with that, as we start to get into our time here, Elise, I'll start back with you. What is it that individuals need to know and do in order to aid you, your purpose, your aim, your mission in going forward?
Respect me for more than you see. I'm not just an old Black woman. I am an educated educator. And as with any culture, you know, we have we'll call them leaders, but we'll also call them keepers of the wisdom. In African terms, the griot, the teller of the tale, keeper of the wisdom. Respect me for that. And sometimes it is not about the money. It is exactly about the respect. Oh, I can get Elise. She knows that. I'll pick her brain. We talked about that earlier. And then I will assume that. I will wear her like a coat. I am not an article. I am an individual. And when I look at Black history, we have to go back to the beginning. Chattel enslavement existed here in Canada. And because we are not moving along and respecting our history, and we are trivializing our history, Blacks and whites alike, the Canadian government has given apologies to the Chinese, the Italians, the Jewish, the Indigenous. I want an apology for chattel enslavement in Canada, and I am launching another petition. And I now have the support of 2 members of parliament because I have played the long game. And whether I get that apology in my lifetime, I have set the plate for that apology to be given. And further to that, the French and the British allowed and practiced slavery here in Canada. I will be contacting them as well. Because without respect, and this is what so many Black people have a problem with self-image, with positive self-image, because all we know about is slavery times. We don't go back to the greatness of Africa, the cradle of civilization. We don't take the stance, as Christo was saying, we are as good as anyone else. We don't take the stance that Coco was talking about, that she is an accomplished Black woman. And let's not forget, ladies, being a woman is a strike to begin with. Women still get paid 40% less than men. So all I'm saying is that you have to know your history in order to have a future. And I will continue throughout my lifetime to promote that history, which is African Canadian history, not American history, not African American, not Afro. We're not a hairdo. We are people of substance, and we are the pioneering 4th people of Canada.
Very
Who
good.
made this
Very
nation
good.
what it is today. It was built on our back.
Crystal, to you, what do people need to know to aid you with your purpose, your aim, your mission, your goal?
I think for me, I would say don't judge a book by its cover. I would say, I think it's Rachel that said it earlier, that, Black History Month is not a month thing. I think it's something that should be celebrated all year throughout the year. But more than that, I would say, Black History Month or Black people, it's not just about Black trauma, because I think that's what we see more than anything else. And I think we should celebrate who we are. We should celebrate, the culture, not just the food or the afro, but really where we're coming from, because there are so many positive stories that could be shared rather than just a trauma. And for me, that's really what I'm trying, to put forward, because I think that's what people should remember and what they should know. It's not just a trauma. We are more than just a trauma.
Coco?
Okay, just had to unmute. No, great points from everybody. Most definitely, I agree with everything. And for me, I would say, embrace all that I am. I'm truly not just an artist, a professional artist. I am an entrepreneur. I am an IT professional, and I am a Black activist. And I will bring activism to everything that I do, and I will speak up. And if anyone has a problem with that, if it sounds too blackety black, as the saying goes, well, that's too blackety black for you. Because this is part of my purpose, I believe here. I could not be so affected and so irritated by, yes, what I'm seeing in the media with just pushing and promoting the trauma that we experience as Black people. And seldom is our greatness elevated to the levels that, it belongs on. And I think in every single area, every single industry, Black people, we've been making contributions from day one, huge, significant contributions. And I will continue to do my thing. I will continue to stand proudly as a Black woman. I'm very pleased to be a part of such a brilliant panel of other Black women who are accomplished across this country. And I'm glad that we continue to speak up, yes, beyond the 28 days that we've been allotted. And just, I say not to be discouraged, and not to take my kindness and my willingness, yes, to step into Black spaces and to offer my gifts of time and service. Don't take that for me being naive. There are times when I will say no. I think it's okay to say no. As I think was it Rachel who said, she refuses to essentially work for zero. There are times, yes, well, I will definitely put my foot down and say no. There are times truly where I will step up and still help my people. But I always will bring my consciousness to the forefront. I'll keep doing that.
Fantastic. And Rachel?
Without repeating what was said, I agree with all this fabulous women on the panel to choose your battles, to value yourself. Yes, there are times where our work, you can invest your work for free. But I really, for me, it was a light bulb moment when the African Americans told me that I'm worth more than nothing, and that I've been giving away the milk for free for too long. And I think we, as women first and Black people second, have been used to conditioned to work for free. And it's just a reminder of our ancestors already did that for a long time. We don't owe anything to anybody.
Like that.
And it's so true because you know, the space of any type of advocacy and activism is always, especially for the Black community, has always been for free, because that's how we galvanize and we're able to work, because we know about the systems that and institutions that we're working against. But it is very important that everyone knows that moving forward, your value and your worth is something that must be germane within the structure that you create for yourself, because your mental health, your well-being, and your economic status for your children and your legacy must also be established, right? Because not everyone is sitting in six-figure jobs with full benefits. So we have to always be mindful of making sure that we leverage appropriately to make sure your next generation as well. Part of the discussion here, because we do have some more time though, I wanted to go into the piece that we're saying. So at least you would say that we really need to have a meeting of leaders. And the question, and we've already discussed this in the point, in the sense about who are the leaders, who's being selected, what do they stand for, do they have real advocacy, do they have real voice? But we have to also acknowledge the fact that those who do speak out, though, to the point that Crystal brought forward about, you know, the fatigue that happens, is also the beating down and the labeling of our people, right? So when we think about, in particular, Black females, if you're in those spaces and you do challenge and you do push, you know, Rachel and I have had a sidebar conversation before about things. It's a matter of you have to wear that aggressor, the anti, whatever they want to attach after that. So in doing that, in a sense, you know, at least to the point, we've had numerous meetings, or the coming of the minds, or what we thought was a coming of the mind. And when you leave out of that meeting, you have that person that still is the turncoat that runs and does something opposite, right? Or tries to leverage it differently.
Right.
But ladies, how would you see, or what would you be willing? Because we have to go into all different spheres, right? In the sense of, when we say the coming to mind and the leaders, give me some names that you think. So I'd be interested to hear, who would you say would be your top, and it's kind of quick because I'm just saying it now, you may forget some people. Who are your top 5? I won't even say 10. Top 5 people that if we said we're going to have this coming to mind, and the leaders that should be at the table, right? And remember, we're coming from different geographical areas and whatever sphere we're speaking of. Crystal, who would be your top 5?
I'm really not good with names. I'm good with faces, but not with names. But I would say here locally, Uzoma, she's an MP here, and I think she's actually one of the first Black MP here in Manitoba. I think because I think we should have people. First of all, I think we should have people from different level, different spheres, because you know it takes everyone to improve our society. But that's the one person that I would say coming from where I am, and I don't see enough Afro-Indigenous. I talk about Indigenous just because here in Western Canada, I think they say in 10 or 20 years, they will be the most demographic here in Western Canada. We'll have a lot of Indigenous folks in our cities. And where I'm based in Winnipeg, it's actually the city in Canada with the highest Indigenous population, urban center anyway. So I think there's a lot of Afro-Indigenous folks as well that could be part of that conversation. And there's one that I have in mind, but I'll type her name because I'm really not good with names, but I'll type my top 5 there in the comments.
Okay, Elise?
Well, as an old head, I'd certainly say myself, because I am a pioneer and because I am caring. I have supported many, many Black youth and women in particular, because it is important for the women who are the nurturers by nature. It isn't about being a powerhouse necessarily. I don't see myself as that, but it's being consistent and determined and loyal to your cause. Should I pick someone else from my community? I would look
Yep,
at
give me
someone like,
five. Give me five. It doesn't
all
matter.
right,
It's world, it's
excellent.
Canada we're talking. If you're gonna have
Great.
this so-called coming to the mind, who are your top five at this table?
I want to look at people from different venues. I'm an educator. I'd like Linda McCurdy as a lawyer. I'd like Leslie McCurdy as an artist. I would look at Jean Augustine because she is a powerhouse, period. I would look at Leslyn Lewis, a Black woman who was strong enough and bold enough to run for the head of the Conservative Party. Those are the people that I see as past, present, and future leaders who could connect and do some good in making African Canadian people's future better.
Rachel?
Boy, that's a tough question. The people that came to mind right away, Yvette, were Elle Jones. She's a poet, journalist, professor, activist in Halifax. Afua Cooper, she's a historian of Black Canadian history, also out in Halifax. There's a new organization called the Red Coalition, led by Joël de Bellefeuille and Alain Babineau out of Montreal. They are lobbyists against racial profiling. They are all the way out and not afraid to say anything to anybody. I love their frankness and the way that their approach. And they also have the support of some former MPs, like one of the first Black women MPs after Jean, her name was Marlene Jennings. I really respect Matthew Green. He's out of Hamilton. He's an NDP MP. And that's the names that came to my mind first. People who speak truth to power, people who haven't been afraid to stand on the right side of history, even when that meant standing alone, and people that give me hope.
That's good. So, Coco, who are yours?
I would say Dr. Jill Andrew, who is an MP, and I think she would represent well as a Black woman, a Black member of the LGBTQ community. And I would say Aita Sidhu, who's the owner and founder of a different book list here in Toronto. She's definitely established a solid bookstore for our community for years, decades, I believe, making sure that we have access to the educational materials that we need and we deserve. It's a place where aspiring Black authors can get their books published, etc. Definitely the Honorable Dr. Jean Augustine. Her whole life has been one clearly undeniably for our people, and she's opened so many doors already. I would say a man by the name of Colin Johnson. He's a Jamaican background. He ran for councilman last year, and so I encourage him to stick with to continue to run. He has a good heart. He branches out to many different communities, and he reaches back. And I think that was 4. I would put forward that I myself have considered stepping up into this sphere as well. I just have a passion and a heart for it, and where I see things lacking and the whole, oh, come on, why don't we? I'm thinking maybe I can step into that space of why don't we? So it's something that I'm toying with. I'm considering that myself.
Well, as someone who has ran a long time ago, which a lot of people don't even realize or know, I'd say, Coco, step into that, right? Anyone who has the interest, do it, right? So again, don't be faint of heart, because remember that individuals, if you are outspoken, you're not going to be in league with the mindsets of those that are in power, and they'll try to pick against those and support others. But finally here, as we close,
Before we leave this question, you should be at the table.
thank you, really
You've
appreciate it.
been politically inclined. You are an educator. You were a single mother, raised a magnificent daughter. Those are the things that make a person solid. So
Thank you.
I'm
Appreciate that.
thanking you.
Thank you. But as we close out, ladies, I want people to know where they can find you. So giving you each a little 2 minutes here. Where can we find you? What's your business per se? If there's anything external that you'd like to promote, or you have a conference, something coming up, utilize the time now. So Crystal, what do you have happening and where can people find you?
Well, I do not have anything happening right now. I'm a newly mom, so I am enjoying that work at the moment. But people can find me online on Twitter at CTIATI, or I'll put it in the comments as well, or Bell Creatives if you're interested in anything in regards to, advancing your business, growing your business online. It would be under that handle.
Okay. Elise, where can we find you?
Well, Yvette, I could just help you to simply go onto the internet. They can find a lot about me because I've just been out there for so long. But my email is my contact, and it is ehardingdavis@gmail.com. All lowercase, very simple. I don't do, well, I'm also on LinkedIn. I don't care what part of Black history or really Black living, if you have questions, contact me. I am knowledgeable because I was determined to be knowledgeable. Because when I started out, people would challenge me simply on the fact that the Underground Railroad ended in Detroit, Michigan. I want people to look for my petition for an apology from the federal government for chattel enslavement in Canada. It will be up before the end of the week.
Donna, if I can ask if we can have that, if we can, pinned to the video when it goes up on the link so that individuals will be able to follow that. So very good, Elise, and continue to do that advocacy. And Coco, where can we find you?
You can find me at Coco Cognac Brown on IG and FB, Instagram and Facebook, respectively. If you want to contact me with regards to anything to do with music, whether teaching as well as performing, you can reach me there. You can DM me there. If you're interested in anything to do with post-renovation cleaning, like I said, I do have a luxury cleaning business. You can find my IG page for that is Coco Luxury Clean. And you can also attend next week, Sunday. I'm the choir director for the Black History Month choir event called Led to Love. It's happening at the Verity Center, 449 Vaughan Road in Toronto. Starts at 10:30. It will be Zoomed, so you can watch it online as well. And that's it.
Very good. And Rachel, where can we find you?
You can find me online, rachel.cost.com or .ca. They both go to the same place. I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I put it in the chat. And the only thing I can hawk right now that might be interesting to our viewers is that I talk about my first ever journey to the motherland, which I did 5 years ago, in an audiobook that I self-published. It's a yearofreturnbook.com. And if you email me, I'll give you a personal discount.
Very good. Ladies, this really, go ahead, Coco. You had something
No,
else?
no.
Ladies, it has been a very good chat and entertaining. I have enjoyed myself and the thoughts and the processes and different issues have been put forward. I wish you all well in your endeavors. I hope to see you at the banquet next year so we can talk and be able to converse to see what else has happened. And hopefully, to Elisa's point, we will have that meeting of the minds to come together. Some of the people you guys mentioned would not be on my list though, but and that's a different conversation again, as we say about leaders and what some have done. But then there's some really good people that were fantastic. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I wish you all well in your endeavors. Crystal, all the best with being a new mom and the growth in that's going to happen, is going to take place. You have a lot to share. At least continue to share that information and lead with purpose and with guidance. Continue to do that. Coco, let your voice be uplifted every time. So I wish you so much with regards to your choir, your career, and all that's happening within your IT spaces. Rachel, I know you as the activist and the woman that's doing things on the go and the coder and all this. And I love the matching outfits. If you ever see her on her family on Facebook, they're always matching and looking great in all of her world adventures and travels. So I wish you all well with everything that you do and looking to see you again soon. Have a great day. And those who are watching Super Bowl, enjoy your Super Bowl. First year in which 2 Black quarterbacks are going to be there. This is going to be one of my first Super Bowls I'm watching in a while because of Kaepernick. I tuned out of sports in support of that. So just going to zoom back in now. So all the best, Donna, tech crew, everyone. Thank you so much for a great show, flawless exercise that we've done today. And all the best to everybody. Enjoy your day. Be well.
Thank you.
Look how far you have come on your own, but never alone. Through the rain and through the shine, here's your moment. It's your time. You stood tall and now you see, standing in your day.